I know what you've done, I said finally. And I have proof. Denise scoffed. Mom, this is getting out of hand. Mark shifted. Maybe we should just hear her out. Lily looked at me, eyes wide. Is it true? About the deed? I nodded. I never signed it. And I never agreed to give up my home. Denise stood. You're confused. You've been forgetting things. We were trying to help. I pulled out the transcript. This is what you said to Greg. She's not even lucid half the time. We'll get the house. That's not help. That's theft. Mark stepped forward. Denise, is that real? She didn't answer. I turned to Lily. You asked me last week if I wanted to be part of Emma's life. I do. But I won't be manipulated. I won't be erased. Lily nodded slowly. I believe you. Denise's face hardened. You're making a mistake. No, I said. You did. I gave them one final chance. You can fix this. You can withdraw the deed. You can apologize. Or we go to court. Mark looked at Denise. Fix it. Denise grabbed her purse. Do what you want. We're done. She walked out. The door slammed behind her. I sat down, heart pounding. Lily came over and hugged me. Mark nodded, silent but supportive. I wasn't sure what would happen next. But I knew one thing, I'd finally been heard. I held up the photo of me cradling Denise in the hospital, her newborn face wrapped in pink. She used to love me, I said, my voice steady but aching. The courtroom was silent. Even the judge leaned forward. Daniel had prepared me well. We'd filed the injunction, submitted the forged deed, the voice recording, the transcript, the brochure, and even Emma's voicemail. But it was the photo that made the room pause. It wasn't just evidence. It was history. Denise sat across from me, flanked by her attorney. She didn't look at me. Her jaw was tight, her eyes cold. I wondered if she remembered that day in the hospital. I wondered if she cared. The judge asked questions. I answered clearly. I explained how I'd discovered the deed, how I'd never signed it, how I'd been excluded from family events, how my autonomy had been quietly stripped away. Daniel presented the timeline, the documents, the contradictions in Denise's statements. Then Denise's attorney stood. We'd like to call a witness, he said. Greg walked in. My stomach dropped. He took the stand and swore in. Mrs. Holloway has been forgetful, he said. She's left the stove on. She's missed appointments. We were trying to protect her. Daniel stood. Do you have medical documentation of any cognitive decline? Greg hesitated. No. But it's obvious. Daniel nodded. Obvious to whom? The judge raised a brow. Mr. Holloway, without medical evidence, your claims are speculative. Greg shifted in his seat. We were just trying to help. Daniel leaned in. Help doesn't involve forged documents. The judge asked for closing statements. Daniel spoke of dignity, autonomy, and the danger of quiet manipulation. Denise's attorney tried to paint me as confused, overwhelmed, and in need of care. But the evidence spoke louder. The judge looked at me. Do you have anything else to say? I stood. I may be 72. I may forget where I put my keys. But I remember who I am. And I remember what love looks like. This, I held up the photo again, is not love. He nodded. We'll reconvene tomorrow for the verdict. As I walked out, Lily caught up to me. You were incredible, she whispered. I smiled, but my heart was racing. Tomorrow would decide everything. The judge's voice was steady. The property remains solely with Mrs. Holloway. I didn't cry. I didn't gasp. I just closed my eyes and let the words settle into my bones like warmth after a long winter. Daniel squeezed my shoulder. Linda let out a breath she'd been holding for days. Across the aisle, Denise sat frozen, her jaw clenched so tight I thought it might crack. The judge continued, citing the forged signature, the lack of medical evidence, and the audio recording as grounds for invalidating the deed. This court finds that Mrs. Holloway is of sound mind and fully capable of managing her affairs. It was over. I had won. Outside the courthouse, reporters lingered, but I didn't stop. I wasn't there for headlines. I was there for justice. For dignity. For every woman who's ever been told she's too old to matter. That evening, I returned home to a quiet house. The sun was setting behind the dogwood tree, casting golden light across the porch. I sat at the kitchen table, the same one where this all began, and opened the mail. Among the bills and flyers was a small envelope. No return address. Just my name in careful handwriting. Inside was a letter from Emma. Dear Grandma, it began. I'm sorry I didn't know the truth. I miss you. I want to come live with you. Mommy says no, but I don't care. I love you. You're the only one who listens. My hands trembled as I read it again. And again. I folded the letter and placed it in the lockbox with the rest of my proof, not of betrayal, but of love. Of what still mattered. I didn't know what would happen next with Denise. Or Greg. Or even Mark. But I knew this: I had my home. I had my name. And I had a granddaughter who still saw me. I dug my hands into the soil. It felt like starting over. The dogwood tree swayed gently in the October breeze, its leaves golden and brittle. I knelt beside the garden bed Frank built 30 years ago, the one Denise used to help me weed when she was little. I hadn't touched it in months. But today, I planted marigolds. Bright. Bold. Unapologetic. Linda sat on the porch, sipping iced tea. You're glowing, she said. I'm grounded, I replied. The court ruling had settled the legal battle, but the emotional wreckage lingered. Denise hadn't called. Mark sent a short text, proud of you, Ma. Lily came by with Emma, who ran into my arms like nothing had changed. We baked cookies. We laughed. We cried. And when Emma asked if she could stay for the weekend, I said yes. That night, I found an old photo tucked inside my gardening book. Denise, age 6, covered in mud, holding a worm like it was treasure. Her smile was pure joy. I stared at it for a long time. I didn't hate her. I hated what she'd become. Or maybe what she'd always been, hidden beneath layers of politeness and control. I placed the photo on the fridge. Not as a reminder of pain, but of history. Of love. Of what I'd built. Emma helped me plant the last marigold. Grandma, she said, can we make this our garden? I smiled. It already is. You're never too old to stand up for yourself. I used to think dignity was something you earned quietly with age. That if you were kind, patient, and gave enough of yourself, your family would protect you. But I learned the hard way: sometimes, the people you love most will rewrite your story if you let them. I'm Maggie Holloway. I'm 72 years old. And I fought for my name, my home, and my voice. Not with rage. Not with revenge. But with truth. With proof. With courage. I still live in the same house Frank and I bought. The dogwood tree still blooms every spring. Emma visits every weekend now. We bake. We garden. We laugh. And sometimes, we talk about hard things, because silence is where betrayal grows. To anyone watching this who's been dismissed, manipulated, or made to feel invisible, you are not alone. You are not done. You are not weak. You are still here. And you still matter. Before I tell you what happened next, would you do me a favor? Hit that subscribe button, turn on the little bell, and let me know where you're watching from. It really helps us know where these stories are reaching. I've started writing again. Not just for myself, but for others like me. Because our stories deserve to be told. Loudly. Proudly. Truthfully. She flipped through the documents, nodding slowly. This isn't just shady. It's criminal. I don't want to press charges, I said. I just want my life back. Linda tapped the forged deed. You might not have a choice. Then she pulled out her own surprise. A photo she'd taken last month, outside the Buncombe County Courthouse. Denise, standing on the steps, holding a manila envelope. I didn't think much of it at the time, Linda said. But now? I'd bet my pension that envelope held this deed. My stomach turned. She filed it behind my back. Linda nodded. And if she did it once, she'll do it again. You need to protect yourself. We spent the next hour making a list, documents to gather, people to call, questions to ask. Linda even suggested we install a camera by the front door, just in case. I didn't argue. I was done being passive. That night, I slept better than I had in weeks. Not because the problem was solved, but because I wasn't alone anymore. He didn't sugarcoat it. They're trying to take your house, Mrs. Holloway. His name was Daniel Reyes, a local elder law attorney Linda had found through a retired judge she used to play bridge with. His office was small but tidy, tucked between a bakery and a nail salon. He wore glasses low on his nose and had the kind of voice that made you feel like you were being told the truth, even if it hurt. I handed him the forged deed, the brochure, and a copy of my original property documents. He studied them in silence, flipping pages, making notes. Then he looked up and said, "This isn't just unethical. It's illegal." I felt my throat tighten. "What can I do?" He leaned forward. "First, we file a petition to freeze any further property transfers. Then we challenge the validity of this deed. If you didn't sign it, and I believe you didn't, we'll need to prove it." I nodded, trying to absorb every word. "And if they fight back?" "They will," he said. "But you've got a paper trail. You've got witnesses. And you've got me." Linda squeezed my hand. "We're not backing down." Daniel asked if I had any other proof, emails, texts, anything that showed Denise's intentions. I remembered the voicemail I'd saved from 2 weeks ago, the one where she said, "Don't worry, Mama. We'll take care of everything soon." It sounded sweet then. Now it felt like a warning. He asked me to start documenting everything, every interaction, every visit, every bill paid without my consent. "They're building a case that you're incompetent," he said. "We need to show you're not." I left his office with a folder full of forms and a heart full of fire. I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for my name. My memory. My right to live without being erased. That night, I sat at my kitchen table and began writing. Every detail. Every conversation. Every time Denise called me confused or fragile. I wasn't fragile. I was furious. Daniel had warned me, "You have less time than you think." And he was right. Because the next morning, I got a letter in the mail. From the county. A notice of intent to transfer property ownership. Effective in 30 days, the clock had started. Denise had posted them on Facebook, balloons, cake, my granddaughter Emma blowing out candles with frosting on her nose. The whole family was there. Mark flew in from Chicago. Lily brought her new boyfriend. Even Greg's mother, who can barely walk, made it. But me? I wasn't invited. I didn't even know it was happening. Emma was turning 10. I'd been there the day she was born. I held her before her own father did. I taught her how to make pancakes shaped like hearts. And now, I was erased from her birthday like I never existed. I stared at the photos for a long time. My hands trembled as I scrolled. There was one of Denise holding Emma, captioned, "3 generations of love." I wasn't in it. I wasn't even mentioned. I called Denise. She didn't answer. I called Lily. She picked up, her voice tight. "Mom, it was just a small thing. We didn't want to overwhelm you." "Overwhelm me?" I said. "I'm not a stray dog. I'm her grandmother." Lily sighed. "Denise said you were dealing with stuff. That you needed rest." I felt the heat rise in my chest. What I need is to not be lied to. There was a pause. Then Lily said, "Maybe it's better if you talk to Denise." I hung up. I didn't trust myself to speak. Later that evening, Emma called me. Her voice was soft, uncertain. "Grandma, why didn't you come to my party?" My throat closed. "I wasn't invited, sweetheart." She was quiet. Then she whispered, "But Mommy said you didn't want to come." I closed my eyes. "That's not true, baby. I would have loved to be there." She sniffled. "I missed you." "I missed you too." After we hung up, I sat in the dark for a long time. The silence in the house felt heavier than ever. I thought about the years I'd spent raising those children. The sacrifices. The nights I stayed up sewing Halloween costumes, baking cupcakes, helping with homework. And now, they were rewriting the story. Painting me as fragile. Forgetful. Unfit. But I wasn't broken. I was angry. And anger, I was learning, could be fueled. I opened my notebook and wrote down everything I remembered about the birthday, what I saw online, who was there, what was said. I printed the photos. I saved the voicemail from Emma. I was building a case, not just for court, but for myself. For the truth, they wanted to erase me. But I was still here. And I was done being quiet. I may be old, but I know how to press record. It was Linda's idea, of course. She said, if they're going to lie to your face, make sure you've got proof when they do. So I bought a small voice recorder from the pharmacy, one of those discreet little things that fits in your pocket. I tested it 3 times before I used it. I wasn't going to mess this up. Denise came over that Thursday, unannounced. She brought groceries again, almond milk, gluten-free crackers, things I never asked for. She smiled like nothing was wrong. Like she hadn't stolen half my house and erased me from my granddaughter's birthday. That I kept the recorder in my apron pocket. I asked her about the deed. About the brochure. About the birthday party. She deflected, danced around the truth, called me tired and confused. But then, she slipped. She's not even lucid half the time, she said to Greg, who had joined us in the kitchen. We'll get the house. It's already halfway done. I didn't flinch. I didn't speak. I just let the recorder do its job. After they left, I played it back. Her voice was clear. Cold. Calculated. I transferred the file to my laptop and emailed it to Daniel, my lawyer. He responded within the hour, this changes everything. Linda came over that evening with takeout and a bottle of wine. We listened to the recording together. She shook her head. She's not just greedy. She's dangerous. I nodded. She thinks I'm weak. Linda raised her glass. Then let's show her how strong you really are. We spent the rest of the night organizing my documents, labeling folders, printing emails and photos. I even found an old birthday card from Emma, one that said, "You're the best grandma in the world." I added it to the pile. Proof of love. Proof of history. The next morning, Daniel called. We're ready to file the injunction. I'll need you in court next week. I felt something shift inside me. Not fear. Not dread. Something sharper. Something stronger. I wasn't just fighting back. I was reclaiming my story. I didn't raise cowards. But I sure raised liars. The living room was quiet, too quiet. Denise sat stiffly on the couch, arms crossed. Mark leaned against the fireplace, avoiding eye contact. Lily perched on the armrest, chewing her lip. Greg didn't come. I didn't ask why. I placed the folder on the coffee table. Inside, the forged deed, the assisted living brochure, the voice recording transcript, and a photo of Denise at the courthouse. I didn't speak right away. I let the silence do the talking. I wasn't snooping. I was looking for batteries. What I found instead nearly stopped my heart. A crisp manila envelope, tucked beneath the junk drawer's clutter, sealed and stamped with something official. I opened it with trembling fingers, and there it was. A notarized deed transfer. My name. My daughter's name. Dated 6 months ago. I hadn't signed anything. I hadn't agreed to anything. But there it was, in black and white. Half my house was no longer mine. Before I tell you what happened next, would you do me a favor? Hit that subscribe button, turn on the little bell, and let me know where you're watching from. It really helps us know where these stories are reaching. My name is Margaret Holloway, Maggie to most, and I'm 72 years old. I live in Asheville, North Carolina, in the same modest 2-bedroom home I bought with my late husband, Frank, nearly 40 years ago. I raised 3 children here. Cooked thousands of meals. Hosted birthdays, Thanksgivings, and tearful goodbyes. This house is my history. My sanctuary. Or at least, it used to be. Lately, things have changed. My eldest daughter, Denise, started visiting more often. At first, I thought it was sweet. She'd bring groceries, help with the garden, even fix the leaky faucet. But then she began asking strange questions, about my will, my finances, whether I'd ever consider downsizing. I brushed it off. Families talk about these things. But that envelope? That envelope told me everything I needed to know. I sat down at the kitchen table, the same one where I used to braid Denise's hair before school, and stared at the document. The notary stamp was real. The signature looked like mine, but it wasn't. I knew my own handwriting. This was a copy. A forgery. And it had already been filed. I called Denise. She didn't answer. I called again. Nothing. I left a voicemail, trying to stay calm, asking her to call me back. I didn't mention the deed. I wanted to hear her voice first. I wanted to believe there was some explanation. But deep down, I already knew. Something was very, very wrong that night. I couldn't sleep. I kept replaying every conversation we'd had over the past year. The subtle shifts. The way she'd started calling me forgetful. The way she'd taken over my bills, my appointments, even my prescriptions. I thought she was helping. I thought she cared. But now, I wasn't so sure. The next morning, I found something else. A brochure. Tucked under the fruit bowl. Golden Pines Assisted Living. Smiling nurses. Locked doors. A note scribbled on the back, "Tour next week, ask Mom." My hands shook. My heart pounded. I wasn't just being pushed out of my home. I was being erased. I knew I had to act. I wasn't ready to be silenced. Not yet. Not ever. They used to call every Sunday. Like clockwork. Denise would ask about my garden, my knees, whether I'd watched that new baking show. My son, Mark, would check in from Chicago, always with a joke and a "love you, Ma." Even my youngest, Lily, would FaceTime me from her cluttered Brooklyn apartment, letting me see the chaos of her life. But lately? Silence. Not even a missed call. Just nothing. I sat by the window that Sunday, the one facing the dogwood tree Frank planted the year Denise was born. The leaves were turning, crisp and golden. I waited. I brewed coffee. I checked my phone. No calls. No texts. Just a notification from my bank. Denise had paid the utility bill again. I hadn't asked her to. I hadn't even seen the bill. I called her. Straight to voicemail. I tried Lily. She answered, distracted, said she was in the middle of something, and hung up. I didn't bother with Mark. He hadn't called in 3 weeks. I felt like a ghost in my own family. That afternoon, I pulled out the deed again. I stared at it, trying to make sense of the signature. It looked like mine, but it wasn't. The loops were wrong. The slant was off. I remembered signing my will 5 years ago, with Frank beside me. That signature was careful. This one was rushed. Impersonal. I felt sick. I needed answers. I needed to know what Denise had done. I waited until Monday morning and drove to her house. She wasn't expecting me. Her face froze when she opened the door. "Mama," she said, voice tight. "You should have called." "I did," I said. "You didn't answer." She invited me in, but the warmth was gone. Her husband, Greg, barely looked up from his laptop. The house smelled like cinnamon and bleach. Too clean. Too staged. I pulled the deed from my purse and laid it on the kitchen counter. "Explain this." Denise blinked. "You signed it, remember? We talked about it. You said you wanted help managing things." "I never signed this," I said. "And I never agreed to give you half my house." She sighed, like I was a child throwing a tantrum. "Mama, your memory's been slipping. You forget things. You said it was fine." I felt the blood rush to my face. "Don't you dare." Greg stood up. "Maybe we should talk about this later." "No," I said. "We talk now." Denise folded her arms. "You're making this harder than it needs to be." I left. I didn't slam the door. I didn't cry. But something inside me cracked. They weren't just dismissing me. They were rewriting my life. And I wasn't going to let them. It was tucked under the fruit bowl. I wasn't even looking for it. I was just clearing the table, wiping crumbs from the placemats, when I saw the glossy corner peeking out. I pulled it free and stared. Golden Pines Assisted Living. A smiling nurse. A cheerful old man playing bingo. A woman in a wheelchair surrounded by pastel walls. I felt like I'd been punched in the gut. I flipped it over. On the back, in Denise's handwriting, "Tour next week, ask Mom." No question mark. No invitation. Just a plan. A decision made without me. I gripped the edge of the counter to steady myself. My knees felt weak. My heart thudded in my chest like a warning bell that I wasn't losing my mind. I wasn't frail. I wasn't ready to be locked away in some place where they serve pudding cups and call you "sweetie" like you're 5 years old. I still drove. I still cooked. I still remembered every birthday, every recipe, every betrayal. I called Denise again. Straight to voicemail. I didn't leave a message this time. I needed to think. I needed to act. I went to my bedroom and pulled out the old lockbox Frank and I used for important papers. Inside were our marriage certificate, the original deed to the house, my will, and a few photos. I added the brochure and the forged deed. I wasn't sure what I was building, but it felt like armor. That night, I couldn't sleep. I kept hearing Greg's voice from last week, when I'd stopped by unexpectedly. I'd lingered in the hallway while Denise was in the bathroom. He didn't know I was there. He was on the phone. She won't even know what hit her, he said. We'll get the house, and she'll be safe. It's better this way. Safe? Better? For whom? I crept back into the kitchen and stared at the brochure again. The smiling faces felt sinister now. Like masks. I imagined myself there, in one of those rooms, stripped of my independence, my memories boxed up and stored in some closet. I imagined Denise visiting once a month, bringing me sugar-free cookies and guilt.no. I wasn't going quietly. I opened my laptop and typed, Elder Law Attorney Asheville. I didn't know what I'd find, but I knew I had to start somewhere. I wasn't just fighting for my house. I was fighting for my name. My dignity. My right to be heard. Linda always knew when I was lying, even over the phone. We'd been best friends since 1969, when we both worked the switchboard at Bell South. She was the one who taught me how to smoke menthols, how to flirt without meaning it, and how to spot a liar from a mile away. So when I called her that Tuesday morning, trying to sound fine, she cut me off before I could even say hello. What's wrong, Maggie? I broke. I told her everything. The forged deed. The brochure. The silence. The way Denise looked at me like I was a burden instead of her mother. I didn't cry, not really, but my voice cracked more than once. Linda didn't interrupt. She just listened, the way only someone who's seen you at your worst can. When I finished, there was a pause. Then she said, "You need a lawyer. And I'm coming down." Linda, no, I'm retired, remember? I've got time. And I've got questions. She arrived the next day, suitcase in one hand, a folder in the other. She looked exactly the same, short silver bob, red lipstick, and that no-nonsense stare that could melt steel. We sat at my kitchen table, the same one where I'd found the brochure, and I laid everything out.